Hello, everyone. We're going to give folks just a couple more seconds to join, and then we will be starting. All right, it's about 2 minutes after, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is the Livingston Parish Master Plan Update Implementation Meeting. This is going to be the final project meeting for this part of the work. So we will be going over where we are right now, talking about the draft materials that you all will have the opportunity to see later and share your opinions and thoughts on for the council. And just to give a quick introduction, my name is Mickey Taylor Hendricks, and I am the engagement lead for this project. Before we get started, I am going to go over a few housekeeping rules just to kind of talk through the setup for today. For those who are attending on their computers or phones and are in Zoom, you should have a few different options for chiming in and giving your input. There is a Q&A box that will allow you to type any questions that you have. We'll get to that toward the end of the meeting. If it's easier for you and you would prefer to use the chat box, that option is also available. We will have some polling questions toward the middle/end of the meeting. Folks will be able to share their input through the screen, through or the polling option here. If you are struggling to share it through the option, you are also welcome to share your input through the chat box as well. And I'm going to turn on closed caption for anybody who has hearing impairments that would rather follow along with that. So that's an option as well. Everyone should have that option to turn on closed captions for themselves. I am just going to turn it on for the whole meeting, just in case anybody struggles to see that. And then lastly, for those who are joining from their phones and who are calling in, we will give you the opportunity to come off mute if there are questions that you may have during the Q&A portion, or if you want to share your input, we will give you that opportunity. We will call you out by the last 4 digits of your phone number. And with that, I will turn it over to Anna.
Thank you. And good evening, everyone. We are so excited that y'all took the time to join us for this Livingston Parish Master Plan update. As we mentioned, we do have the draft master plan out there, and you're going to hear more in this presentation about how you can view that, make comments, and we'd really love to get as much input as possible. So as we begin the presentation, I just wanted to take a moment to introduce some of our project team to you guys. So today on the call, we do have WSP, the consultant that is completing the Livingston Master Plan update, as well as Finstermaker, who is assisting with the outreach efforts. My name is Anna Duce. I am an engineer manager with Finstermaker, and I'll kind of let each member of the team give yourselves an introduction.
Hi, my name is Patrick Fenstermaker.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Sorry, Nathan, you go ahead.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Nathan Lipson. I serve as the project manager with WSP for this project. You may have seen me at previous meetings. Really looking forward to describing to you all today where we're at with the implementation. But along with myself, Mickey already introduced herself, but we've got a couple of planners on the phone as well from WSP. I think just for ease, I'll pass this off to Max Nasser is next on my screen. If you want to introduce yourself, Max.
Max Nasser. with WSP. I'm a senior vice president located here in Louisiana, and have been working with this team to generate the new zoning ordinance as well as the master plan.
Awesome. And Abe, you want to go next?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Abraham Abdul-Jabbar. I have been serving as the Deputy Project Manager for the Master Plan, and it's been a pleasure working with all of you.
Awesome. And last but not least on our side is Megan Wynn.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Megan. I'm working on the WSP side to get everything with the plan in order, including collecting your feedback tonight.
Awesome. Go ahead, Patrick.
Hi, everybody. My name is Patrick Fenstermaker. I'm with Fenstermaker and Associates. I've been on Anna's team helping out with project outreach and other tasks to help out with this plan.
Awesome. Sounds great. So, Anna, you want to walk us through our run the show?
Yes, yes. So this webinar is really going to be focused on the implementation phase of the Livingston Parish Master Plan. So as you can see on your screen, we're going to go ahead and walk through the plan structure, touching on the implementation and recommendations chapter, as well as the legal foundation, with adoption timeline and public notices, and essentially how we'll move from the vision of the master plan to actual action. And then we will also have a Q&A session at the end as well to hopefully address any questions that you guys may have. And before I turn it back over to Nathan, we do want to give a special thanks to our planning team, council members, and just the community partners for their contributions and feedback. It's been a great process getting to this point, so we appreciate all of that.
Awesome.
And Nathan,
I'm gonna
go ahead and start with the overview.
Absolutely. So I think the most important thing to start off here is, what is the purpose of the master plan? Why has your parish decided to embark on this master plan? And I think looking at our pre-project goals outlines that pretty well. I don't think it's a secret that things are growing pretty rapidly in Metro Baton Rouge, and that includes Livingston Parish. There have been some pretty rapid changes happening over the last couple of decades, and it's important for the parish to have some control over where those changes happen, where these developments are taking place. So that's sort of the issue number one here, is population and parish growth. Number two is, the balancing of that. The community has its own wants, needs, and desires as it relates to the appearance of the parish, the density of the parish, and the feel of the parish. And so how can we make sure that the community needs are reflected in this development? Where can we push pause, where maybe there's some additional pressures on the community, and make sure that we are putting our our efforts in the right place? Step three, I think, feeds right into that, to making sure that there are infrastructure challenges, or I'm sorry, to alleviate the infrastructure challenges that a lot of this rapid growth introduces. And that's not just traffic, it relates to drainage, it relates to sewage. And there's challenges when these things are not coordinated over time, right? And so ultimately, the purpose of this master plan is to provide a path forward for your council, for your parish, to address these issues with implementable goals, implementable solutions. And so that is the focus of this meeting specifically, is based on all this data we received, based on all this analysis we did, what are the recommendations for your parish to do moving forward? Next slide, please. So this slide basically shows what we are calling the guiding principles. So one of the first things we did when we started working on this project was to develop this list of non-negotiable guiding principles. And these relate to the general planning concept, all the way down to the preferences that we were hearing. So looking at number 4 there, for example, preserve the rural character of the parish. That was something that we knew going into this project was really, really important and needed to be reflected in all of the recommended changes that came out of it. But I think at a higher level, so looking at the first one, for example, following industry best practices. The American Planning Association is the professional organization which sets a lot of the standards for planning in the United States, and what do they have to say about infrastructure recommendations, about rural preservation, and making sure that we're meeting the minimum standards that have been set by the experts across the country. Next slide, please. So we went through this a little bit earlier, or it was alluded to, that the first big step here was WSP assisting the parish to get in place a parish-wide zoning code. So as you can see on the screen, that was implemented on February 27th. Your parish council voted to implement a parish-wide zoning code. So no longer were we, approaching zoning on a district by district basis, but we recognize that there's one code applying to the entire geography of Livingston Parish. And basically, we were able to put that in place so that you may be aware there was a moratorium in place on development, which meant that prior to the master plan getting to the point where a zoning code was in place, no development proposals were allowed to proceed. And the reason for that was that the council did not have the ability to basically say yes or no on a data-driven, facts-based approach, right? So they were running into issues with being able to, as we just talked about, control some of this growth. Organized and controlled growth is one of the main goals. So this was step one to accomplish. You may have, if you've been engaged in this project for a while, have been to one of those public meetings where we went through and attempted to put a zoning designation on every single parcel in the whole parish. And so this is what that resulted in. And that is relevant because in the grand scheme of planning, zoning, I think, is one of the most powerful tools in allowing or disallowing for development types. So having a zoning type that matches a existing condition, or in the case that we're about to go into, potential future conditions is really, really important. So I will hand it over to Abe to go through the land use discussion. So zoning one piece, we're going to talk about land use now.
Thank you, Nathan. So tying back to Nathan's guiding principles that he mentioned, the current land use map of Livingston Parish illustrates the existing distribution of the undeveloped open spaces and developed areas of varying intensities. That would be like your R1 and R2, 3, and forests, cultivated crops, and wetlands as well. The color-coded legend helps identify these land types and their spatial relationships within the parish boundaries. Understanding the current land use pattern is essential for informed planning and helps guide decisions where the future development or conservation efforts should be focused to align with community goals and environmental considerations. Next slide, please. This table provides a comprehensive overview of the proposed future land use categories or character areas, as we've been calling them, highlighting how different areas are planned to be utilized. It covers conservation areas where development is discouraged to protect natural habitats, agricultural and rural areas supporting farming and low-density residential living, and rural estates with large lot homes and accessory agricultural uses. The rural corridor supports small-scale commercial activities alongside residential uses, emphasizing how low-density development and infrastructure varies from minimal in conservation areas to basic utilities in rural roads and agricultural zones. This framework ensures a balanced growth while preserving natural and rural character. Sorry. Next slide. Continuing from the previous slide, this section details additional land use categories focused on suburban and mixed use development. Suburban living areas and are planned for mixed density housing and neighborhood serving commercial uses and necessary infrastructure like sidewalks and parks. Mixed use water zones address development near water bodies with environmental safeguards, allowing residential and recreational uses. Mixed use corridors would blend commercial and higher density residential development along major roads, supporting transit and public amenities where needed. Lastly, commercial and industrial corridors are designated for regional commerce and logistics, discouraging residential uses and emphasizing infrastructure for freight and industrial activities. Next slide, please. And that's how we came up with the proposed future land use map for Livingston Parish, which visually represents how different areas are planned to be developed or preserved. The map uses distinct colors to differentiate between conservation zones, rural areas, and urban districts, which provides a clear spatial framework for growth management. The visualization helps stakeholders understand the intended direction for land use, balancing development with environmental protection and community character, and serves as a critical tool for guiding zoning decisions and infrastructure planning moving forward. Next slide. I think I'm going to pass it over to Mickey now.
Actually, just really quickly want to sort of put a bow on that discussion, Abe, because I think you did a really good job at the end there just to tie back to how that relates to zoning. So like we said, back in February, we put in place the zoning for your parish. The parish has to have the ability to consider potential changes to that zoning over time, right? So the future land use map and all of these designations that Abe went through, that is the tool by which the parish will use to determine whether or not a future land use a zoning decision should be approved or not. So for example, if someone has a property that's zoned ag, its future land use designation shows suburban living, and they request a rezone to a category that would allow for heavy industrial use. Well, the parish would be able to say, the future land use designation for this property is suburban living. Here are the criteria for what those are supposed to look like. Heavy industrial is not in there. So that is not consistent with our master plan. So that's sort of how this tool would be used between the zoning and future land use.
Yes, thank you, Nathan.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mickey. We're going to talk a little bit about public engagement.
All right, so just want to cover what the public engagement has looked like so far for this project. As many of you know, we have had several public meetings throughout the Livingston Parish community. We've hosted them mostly at public libraries in Livingston Parish, as well as schools. We have had 3 meetings total that have focused on the zoning code update specifically, which happened in the earlier phase of this work. And then we have hosted 4 public meetings that were focused mostly on the master plan portion of the work. These meetings were promoted through various channels. We've had yard signs. We have promoted it through Livingston Parish News, the Facebook page that is dedicated to this project. Information has been shared on the project website via email. We have a pretty substantial email list of people who have requested emails and to stay engaged with the project. And we've used those channels to promote the public meetings and take feedback as well. So in addition to just giving updates like this and having a presentation and speaking to the work that we're doing, the public meetings were also great opportunities to collect and hear community input. In addition to that, we collected community input through a public survey that was open for about 4 months on the project website. We've heard from many residents across the parish. We've collected over, it's slipping my mind, but I'm going to find out how many responses. If anybody knows, feel free to jump in. But we heard from many community members. They were able to take the survey and share input on what we called an interactive map, which gave people the opportunity to highlight particular concerns or particular challenges in very specific areas throughout the parish. So that is what we've been able to do so far. As you all know, community input was a very important part of this plan and making sure we heard from the community and we were able to understand the community's vision for the parish over the next 30 years was a core driver for the master plan update. And this is, as I mentioned before, going to be the final meeting for the project. That does not mean this is the final opportunity for the community to chime in and share their input. We'll talk about that a little later, but I do think it's worth kind of reiterating to make sure it's clear. There will be additional opportunities for members of the public to give public input before the master plan is put into play for the parish. And with that, I will turn it back over for the implementations and recommendation portion.
Yes, this is why we're here tonight, is to talk about what the implementation is, right? So next slide, please. So there's an entire chapter of the master plan that is called implementation. So this is, as we mentioned, translating the, sort of grandiose views. We want to see this, we want this to look like this, and putting them into actionable steps. So this body is going to do this, or this group is going to study this, are the next steps here. So it's sort of what a living checklist is what we're calling it, right? So making sure that over the next 0 to 3 years, we have these items that are supposed to be accomplished. And these are the people who are supposed to be doing those things. That's sort of what we're talking about when it comes to implementation, because the master plan is going to have actions that, it's a great plan, but it doesn't really amount to much if nobody's sort of following up on those items, right? Next slide, please. So legally, the state of Louisiana in LRS 33101, for those of you who like to do some light reading, define a master plan as the policy framework, not a regulatory document. So what does that mean? That means that this is recommendations. These are to be interpreted by your administrative staff. So that's the planning department at Livingston Parish Planning and Development Department, as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission. And they are to utilize this document in order to interpret various proposals that are put in front of them, rezone requests, in order to guide the parish moving forward. So what the master plan is not is a set of laws. It does not say this is illegal, this can't be done, this is how you do this with your property. That is not what this is. It is a document that says, hey, we see this is the data we've collected. As professionals, this is what we would recommend if you're trying to get to point B here. So that's sort of how the parish is able to use this document to make their vision happen, right? Next slide, please. So we, in order to sort of make this a little bit more digestible and sort of make it assignable, who's doing what, have organized the goals and objectives that we've identified for the parish into these buckets that I'll go into on my next page. But basically what we're trying to get at here is, here's the challenges, here's the recommendations for addressing these challenges, and here's the timeline that we anticipate based on this approach that's recommended. In some cases, there will be coordination required with other agencies. So for example, there are recommendations that relate to schools in Livingston Parish. Your parish council cannot unilaterally say, I want to see a new high school right there. They have to work with a board, the school board, in order to make those decisions, right? And that is the case for most decisions when it comes to infrastructure, investments. There's going to be different stakeholders, different third parties that your parish is going to have to coordinate with in order to get those things done. Next slide, please. So we have these 3 buckets: smart growth and infrastructure resilience, livability, environment and community services, and economic vitality and community identity. So that first italicized text under each of these buckets sort of describes what you should be seeing in here. So for example, under smart growth and infrastructure resilience, this is where we're talking about land use solutions, transportation and infrastructure issues in order to support sustainable development. So some of the examples of specific items or actions under this would be traffic management and roadway improvement. So actually building new infrastructure where those things are identified as being necessary, and drainage systems, assessing where there are, there's a drainage issue over here. We need to do some kind of improvement there. So on the, let's go over to livability, environmental community, and livability, environment, and community services. So looking at what the parish has all these departments. What are they doing for you? They're maintaining your parks, your public services, education, and environmental stewards. And they have individual actions that they're supposed to take based on the community input that we got. We have some recommendations that relate to improvements that are sort of under each of these buckets. So for example, parks, trails, and recreation is a whole section of this recommendation. We got a lot of comments from the public about what they wanted to see in terms of their parks and places that they recreate. So we have some recommendations specific to that. And then finally, the economic vitality and community identity. First of all, I think it's really important that we tied these 2 things together, the economic vitality piece and the community identity piece, because obviously I think a lot of people hear economic vitality, they hear businesses, a lot of people think development, and that is really scary. A lot of our recommendations do not relate specifically to large-scale development. They relate to creating environments where perhaps your local businesses are able to improve or grow, but that still has that economic input at the end of the day, right? But also highlighting the parish's unique character, I think, is important. So you'll see what we mean, I think, when we get to that section in just a minute. Uh-oh, do we lose our PowerPoint? There we go. All right, so as I mentioned, we have these 3 buckets, so you'll see those still color coordinated as we go through the phases, but now we're going to talk timeline. So we have three groupings of timelines. So short term, what is the master plan recommending be accomplished in the next 0 to 2 years? So for example, under smart growth, developing a comprehensive traffic management plan. So I think it's really important that as we go through this, you're going to see that this master plan is going to recommend more plans. That is absolutely standard practice in the planning world, right? What a master plan is doing is really looking at something from the 50,000-foot level. We cannot possibly, when we're looking at that level, be able to say, hey, at John Smith needs to put in a turn lane at his driveway here because there's all of these traffic issues that relate to this specific roadway in this specific part of the parish, right? So in order to capture some of those more granular recommendations, you need to have a team that is specifically focused on transportation improvement projects. And so that specifically can come out of what we call a comprehensive traffic management plan, which is going to look at key areas in the parish that have specific traffic concerns, maybe safety concerns when it comes to traffic, that the parish can take actions on. So under the livability, environment, and community services section, looking at how do we use these spaces, right? So conducting workshops to make sure that we are utilizing the parks, trails, and green spaces in the best way that we can. Maybe there's some community ideas for why don't we, this very low level of effort development would really have a big impact on how me and my family use this park. Great, those are the types of things that we think can be dealt with in these sort of buckets, and basically be able to react to these park related ideas. I do believe I just saw a comment that I wanted to just address. Everyone should be able to see the comments that are coming in. So I think that was the first one that we got, was asking if we can see the other comments coming in. So please feel free, as Mickey just said in the chat, get those questions in now. If they relate specifically to a slide, we might break to address that, but I think we're going to try to get to them at the end. But as I'm going through, please highlight things that you'd like to hear more about or have questions about. So those are the short-term items, 0 to 2 years. Next slide, please. So 2 to 5 years out, what are we looking at? Smart growth and livability. So obviously there's going to be some recommendations that come out of a plan. So on the last slide, we had that traffic management plan, right? So that plan is going to recommend specific infrastructure improvements. Those can't magically take place at the same time as they're being planned. So we have sort of looking out from that plan 2 to 5 years, some projects that may be recommended based on that traffic management plan. Looking at the livability, environment, and community services section. So we have building new parks, trails and community centers, community assets. So same thing I just mentioned, in 0 to 2 years, we want to talk to folks about, hey, we are hearing a lot of comments from our master plan about community facilities and recreational opportunities. Let's put a specific emphasis on this. Let's put a specific effort on making sure we know which ones need to be, a new opportunity for a new park or a new opportunity for construction at an existing park. Same thing, that's going to happen on a 2 to 5 year timeline right after these ideas have been cultivated and refined. And then finally, economic vitality and community identity. So there may be small business grants and incentives that I mentioned. So making things easier for the existing businesses that are in Livingston, not just attracting entirely new businesses to come in, but making sure that the existing industries that we do have are able to thrive within the existing conditions that we have and the changing conditions, right? Next slide, please. Finally, 5+ years. So some of these initiatives, the very first one on this list, expand wastewater treatment facilities. I don't think I have to tell you all that that is a very complicated infrastructure item to build. There's all kinds of considerations from the location between the community to where the waste treatment plant is to, environmental concerns, safety concerns. That is a very complicated issue. And I know, for example, as well, that there may be intergovernmental coordination that needs to happen. If these things are sort of siloed in the individual municipalities right now, it might take some additional coordination between them and the parish to come up with a parish-wide solution. So just looking at that specific example, and I know the very first example on here, expanding wastewater treatment facilities, is tied again to a recommended plan, which is the master drainage plan. I'm sorry, the master sewage plan, rather. Second item on here, livability, environmental, and community services. So for example, continue hazard mitigation and emergency preparedness. That is never not going to be something that needs to be updated, right? So I know right now your parish is in the process of updating its hazard mitigation plan. Guess what? They're going to have to do it again in another 5 years because the parish is changing, the risks are changing, and where people live is changing, right? And so at the end of this, we, push a lot more about this economic development potential. I think that there are initiatives that take a short amount of time, but for the vast majority of the economic vitality approaches are going to take some time to settle in. They're going to take some time with working with our partners that we know the parish has very close relationships with, but it's going to take also, something that's important to push, the public outreach side of this too, making sure that business owners are able to benefit from whatever recommendations come out. So those are our 3 phases. So short, near term, medium, and long term, and then broken out in these 3 buckets. And so if you look at that implementation section, that's what we're sort of asking you to consider is, each of these sections, I think we can go on to the next slide actually. Each of these sections is going to be broken out into goals and objectives that are specifically something that should be assigned to an individual, a board, a group, in order to be, somebody be on top of those objectives and goals. So very important, interagency coordination, as I mentioned, and I think I've given some pretty good examples as to the entities that need to be involved in these goals, but it's different for each goal. So this master plan is a reference library. I think that's an important term to ascribe to this document. There's all kinds of data in here that is going to be able to be built on with other projects. So for example, I'm just going to go ahead and address one of the comments. So one of the questions was, are you guys working with HAF to address drainage concern areas when doing the master plan and future land use map? For instance, high flood areas that may be labeled for high density. So that's a perfect example, is that we are aware there's an ongoing drainage master plan. The number of entities that are required to execute that master plan, you've got multiple gravity drainage districts that are in charge all across the parish. They have differing jurisdictions that do not follow council district boundaries. They do not follow municipality boundaries. And there's all kinds of state entities that need to be coordinated with, but those are absolutely items that our team coordinated with. The HAF Engineering is the name of the firm that's doing that that plan for you all right now. We have had multiple meetings with them. We have left placeholders in the appropriate places in our plan for where those analyses and the specific decisions that come out of this much more detailed plan can be put in moving forward. So this is an item that needs to be updated regularly, this is a document that can be referenced regularly rather, but also needs to be updated, and we'll speak about a little bit about what that looks like in a moment. Next slide, please. So like I just mentioned, the parish is going to have to update this document. So the previous master plan before this 2025 update was from 2013. That was a little bit longer than I think most parishes are typically on a timeline for. So you will likely see your parish, barring some major economic shift or something that would require them to really take another look at this thing, your parish should probably start to look at this in the next 5 to 7 years, right? Conditions change, populations change, there will be projects that there are other entities that the parish can't control, may come in with. And so it's important that this plan can be updated either fully by being fully replaced, which is exactly what we're doing right now, right? The 2013 master plan is being replaced by this document. But it can also be, a section can be modified if there are changes to demographic projections, for example, which may change the needs for the land use in the parish. We can update that document, or the parish rather can update that document. Next slide, please. So this is sort of, I think, a key piece of this is that, as Mickey highlighted, this project has been extremely community driven, as it should be from the get-go. I believe that when I checked, when you were looking, Mickey, we had over 500 comments or 500 survey responses. And that is the type of drive that I think the parish is hoping to continue. Because at the end of the day, as I mentioned, This master plan is going to have specific objectives and goals that are outlined that need to be followed. And if there are not stakeholders that are engaged, I am responsible for item 3A, for goal 3A. This is my job. I'm the chairman of this board that's in charge of this. It's gonna delay the ability for the parish to really make some of these changes. And so I think you'll see that when we get to the public outreach, I'm sorry, to the Q&A piece of this, we're going to be polling you all for some questions that are going to speak to this exact concern, making sure that the parish knows how to reach you all when they need to reach you all. They need to be able to know how and when to reach the constituents of the parish who are driving a lot of these decisions. It is not one department's job. It is not one individual's job. It is not just your elected official's job to be driving, right? It's everybody. You all are living in this parish. You have to be engaged, or it's in your best interest to be engaged, right? Or else the decisions are being made for you. Next slide, please. So most importantly, I think at this stage is that you all know how to find this draft plan because it is a draft. It has every ability to be modified. There has been no resolution to accept it by your parish. It is not on the books anywhere. So the screenshot you're looking at here is on the zoning page for the Livingston Parish Council site. So if you go to the Livingston Parish Council website, there should be on the homepage a little button on the in the middle. There have all the departments, and one of them says zoning. Mickey just dropped the link in the chat as well. You can click on that. It'll take you to this page, and the very last link there says Master Plan Draft, September 11th, 2025. That is where the most recent draft of this master plan is. And I will let you all know that we are going to recommend changes to this master plan based on what we hear from the Planning Commission. There's going to be a hearing that we'll get to in a minute, what we may hear from this meeting, as well as the actual council hearings themselves. So on the evening that this master plan is being considered by your council, they can make changes to it. They can make recommendations before it's adopted. So I think that's very important to highlight. So hopefully everybody's got the link, QR code or something. Before I go on to the next slide. So 3 more opportunities. So we have mentioned this is the last opportunity to engage with the project, but in reality, there's going to be 3 more public hearings at which your council, the planning commissioners are going to be available to take public comments. So that first opportunity is going to be next Thursday. That's when your council is going to introduce this master plan for a hearing in October. So there should be a hearing at that time. After that, the actual planning commission hearing where this is a special meeting, so you don't have to go and listen to a bunch of people's rezone requests. It is a meeting just for this master plan on October 7th. And so that'll be, I think, a really great opportunity to really get into the nitty gritty. I have a feeling that your very, very thorough planning commissioners are going to be asking us questions about the plan, about the data, about the decisions that were made. So I think that's a really good educational opportunity for everybody as well if you're available for that October 7th meeting. And then the final hearing, hopefully, will be the 23rd for the council's consideration. And so what that will look like is the council, as I said, will introduce it next week. There will be some time for the public to be aware that this document is available for review. And then that final hearing will be on the 23rd of October. All right. So as I mentioned, there are ways to change this master plan. And I think this is a really important slide for everybody to be aware of. So major amendments, as I sort of alluded to, a major economic shift, a global pandemic, a major development in the parish that's going to change the landscape of the parish. These are all items that would, depending on the specifics, potentially require what we would consider to be a major amendment. So this is going to have to be initiated by the parish. So your council, they would have to specifically, point to an issue or point to some kind of driver that is speaking to what the major change might be. And key point here is that it requires robust public engagement. So your council cannot pass this master plan, have all these hearings, and then decide, in the dark of night on a Thursday evening to remove an entire section of the master plan without having a public engagement process. And I think that's really important to drive home. Now, there may be minor changes to the code or to the master plan. Maybe there's a typo that we don't catch until after the hearing. Maybe there is a photo that, oops, that's the wrong picture. We have to switch this out. They should be errors. These should not be substantial changes to the actual code itself, or to the actual plan itself, right? But these can be handled administratively, meaning we don't have to go to the parish council to correct a typo in the code. That's for everybody's best interest, I think. But I think it's really important to highlight that the major amendments, anything that is going to be changing your code in a way that has a substantial and tangible impact to the community, needs to requires robust public engagement. And so applicant initiated amendments. So this can be an individual that says, hey, I looked at your future land use map and I disagree with this specific assessment of this specific property here. I think that this one specific property needs to look this way. It aligns with goals 4 and 5 of the smart growth section. It aligns with these specific objectives that are listed. If you have a legitimate argument that, as I said, does not sneak into the realm of major amendment, it doesn't matter if it comes from a resident or the parish. If it results in a major amendment, it requires that robust public engagement. But if it's just again, one of those minor amendment things, I think that's what we're getting at with the applicant initiated amendments. Just want to make sure I address these couple of comments. So minor amendments, updating maps, what would this include? So as I mentioned, I think there may be a situation. So let me give you a very specific example. So say there is, when we received the parcel information from the assessor's office, there is an error in that. So a parcel is split and it wasn't supposed to be. And we have given 2 different designations to a parcel in a way that we would not have done if we thought that that was one parcel. That might result in what we would consider to be an applicant initiated amendment. Someone would come forward and say, I don't think this makes sense here. I'm not in the buffer off of this roadway as you described for this economic development corridor. I don't think this aligns with the goals and objectives that were outlined. This is for one parcel. It's not for a quarter mile down a street, every single parcel up and down. It's for one specific example. That might be in the realm of an applicant initiated amendment that would be a minor amendment. It is sort of difficult to, I'm not going to be able to give you an exhaustive list of minor and major situations. I think that is sort of a case by case that we want to leave some flexibility for. But at the same time, I think it is pretty, from a professional standpoint, pretty obvious if it gets into the realm of being major amendment. If this is going to impact other people's properties, if this is going to impact an overall objective or initiative that the parish has, that's going to require public engagement. That's going to require a major amendment. And there is a much more detailed section in the plan, so I would encourage you all to look at the major and minor amendments section of the master plan itself. That might clear it up a little bit more. I think those are the comments. Applicant initiated under review. Who is the reviewer? So a formal review would be administrative. It may require your planning commission or zoning commission to weigh in if it results in a change to a zoning map or a change to the future land use map. But as I said, there might be examples of an error or an administrative issue that might be able to be covered just by the planning department. But the vast majority of situations, if there is a change to the map, is going to require some type of public hearing. All right. So is this the last slide for me before we get into, yes, it is, great. So let's make sure I've covered, I'm gonna go to the top of my Q&A here and make sure I've addressed the ones that have been asked up to this point. Livingston can coordinate with DOTD. Yeah, really good reference to the DOTD safety system. I think that's really useful in the chat there.
I'm going to copy that so everybody can see it. That came just to the panelists.
Oh, okay, great.
So
yeah,
everybody should be able to see it now. And this is
awesome.
a comment that was shared from an attendee. So that's just copy and paste.
Thank you.
And then I'll copy one more. This is just a general comment, but it also came just to the panelists on this side.
I think that also that the comment regarding that review is a perfect example of what Nathan was highlighting earlier. When he said that a lot of the items that are in the master plan are going to require coordination with other agencies, since there are items that cannot be solely achieved by the parish.
Yes, yes, and just
important. DOT is a very important partner in a lot of this.
absolutely. So, and the last comment that came in, if a developer wants to initiate a review, administration would handle that, correct? Again, it's going to depend on the scale, but I would think that if it is a major development proposal, and again, so just as a reminder, I think this is anything that's going to be a proposal like a plat or a subdivision or some kind of development, that has a very specific procedure, right? We're just talking about changes to the master plan. So somebody coming and changing a goal or changing the future land use designation. I think the only piece of this that I think might relate specifically to a developer in that way would be the future land use designation. And again, it would really require someone to say, this future land use designation for this parcel is not in line with your master plan. It requires a change. If your administration is able to review it and finds that this is not going to have a substantial impact on other properties, it may constitute as a minor amendment, but I think the vast majority of those are going to be major.
Nathan, I think it would be prudent to provide some explanation of what exactly is meant by the administration. There are different bodies of government. If you say administration, it covers a lot more than the parish president, for instance, right?
Yes.
Yes. So could you go through some of that explanation?
Absolutely. So from a review perspective, when somebody wants to come in and they say, I need a rezone for my property, or I want my property to be developed this way, they're going into your planning department. So that is a body of the administration as the planning department. There's forms that they have to fill out that have to be reviewed administratively before it can go to the next reviewer, which is your planning or your zoning commission. So those are two separate entities. The zoning and planning commission is not a part of the administration. The administration is just that planning department. So the people that work in the building that are getting paid by the parish to review things, that's your administrative staff for the planning department. Then your planning commissioners and your zoning commissioners are appointed by individual councilmen. That is another body that reviews. So I see a comment requesting the process for rezone requests. So I'm going to go through that sort of with this in mind, identifying those bodies. So I'm Nathan Lipson. I want my property to be rezoned. It's ag. I want it to be R5, which is the highest density zoning designation for residential. So that's multifamily only. So I go to the planning department. That's the administration. That's the administrative review. They give me my rezone request form. I have to fill that out. I tell them this is the parcel number. I'm the owner. Here's all the information about it so the parish can identify my property. And the parish says, yep, you filled out the form correctly. You put your name where you needed to. You said what zoning you wanted it to be changed to. You looked at the requirements. Now we can put this on the agenda for the Planning and Zoning Commission's consideration. So in this case, it would be your zoning commission. They're going to see the request. They're going to say, okay, is this in line with our master plan? So today, what that would look like is them looking at the 2013 master plan. They would look at the designation for the property on the future land use map in the 2013 master plan. They would look at the goals that are outlined in the 2013 master plan, and they would say, no, this property rezone request does not meet the minimum requirements. This property does not have a future land use designation that is multifamily. It does not meet the requirements of the master plan. We would recommend that this rezone request be denied. That would be presented to the council at the next council meeting, and the council would officially deny or approve that request. So there's sort of the three reviews. For the master plan request, and I think that what is being requested there is a change to the future land use map. So a change to the future land use map can either be a major or a minor amendment. It depends on how big of a change is. It depends on why the change is being made. Is it a mistake? Was there incorrect information provided to the map makers? Was there an incorrect zoning designation that was provided to us when we made the future land use designation? But again, I don't want to say a hard and fast major minor for those changes, but that is the only change that would be applied to a map that's a piece of the master plan as the future land use map. So changes to your zoning code and your zoning designation have nothing to do with the master plan except for what the master plan recommends for that property. So they're two completely different processes. Hopefully that cleared that up.
One more question in the Q&A box.
Got it. There's a lot of industry in Holden. There is not much industrial. There's not much industrial in Holden today. So why has that area been chosen? So I think that the question is that there is a lot of future industrial for the Holden area, but there is not industrial today in Holden. Correct me if that's not how the question it was meant to be posed. But let me, would somebody flip back to the future land use map in the PowerPoint, and maybe it'll be easy for us to look at it that way. It's only 300 slides back. Right here. So unfortunately, Holden isn't labeled on this map specifically, but I think we can see it sort of to the bottom
right east of
southwest of
Albany.
Albany.
Oh,
right?
sorry, west of Albany, yeah.
Right. So you might notice in this map that there is sort of a red and pink line that goes through the middle. That is what we're calling the economic development corridor. So that's something that was recommended in the 2013 master plan. It was not recommended by our planning commission specifically to us, but at the same time, we are planning professionals. We have identified that there is a pretty major piece of infrastructure that goes through that corridor. That's the interstate, as well as the major railroad corridor, right? And so those are areas that recognizing, again, that we have to have the responsible and organized development, right? We don't want people to build industrial commercial areas that are nowhere near an interstate where there's going to be traffic going through residential areas. There's going to be, drainage issues potentially. So what we've identified is, and this is consistent with the sort of development patterns that we're seeing right now, actually, is that this corridor along I-12 is going to be available for rezones. So again, this is your future land use map we're looking at. So as you pointed out, there is not a lot of commercial industrial zoning in these categories right now. There's some, but not a lot. And so what we're recognizing by this map is we've got the infrastructure in place. We've got the transportation corridors that are going to allow for the movement of goods, the traffic that comes with, say, a commercial development. And we think that if the parish is going to allow that to develop somewhere, this is where that should be. And it's in this corridor here. But I think that was a really, really good question that speaks to sort of the difference between the existing current zoning and what the future land use designations are. And so you will find examples across the parish where the future land use map does not match the underlying zoning designation. And not only is that okay, it's expected, because otherwise your parish would have no ability to change people's zoning over time. There would be no ability to shift with economic conditions, with environmental conditions, if there is no ability to say, hey, this future land use designation should take over once the market dictates that, that site's not going to work for this other underlying use anymore, right? So hopefully I answered that question correctly. I know we do have some polling questions, and maybe that will elicit some more discussion as we move forward. So please feel free to add some more questions to the chat, but I want to make sure we don't miss this opportunity. So Mickey, if you want to open up those polling questions.
All right. Everybody should see quite a few questions on their screen. I'm going to talk through them one by one. You should be able to respond on the screen. If you're having trouble with that, you can always use the chat. It does look like folks are already doing it, so that's good. All right, so question number one. how did you hear about the meeting today? A few options you can choose from. Did you see this on the parish website, on social media? Did you hear about it through word of mouth, friend, family, neighbor? Did you get a email about it? I'll give y'all just a couple more seconds to respond. This will help us just better understand how community members in Livingston Parish are getting their information. And then we'll go into more similar questions to better understand how to engage moving forward.
And I just I just want to add, Mickey, it doesn't look like anyone called in, so I think we should be able to just continue with
The next question.
yeah, we
Okay.
shouldn't need to let people off mute or anything, I don't think.
Okay. Again, if you're struggling to respond to the poll, feel free to provide your answer in the chat. Question number 2. How many master plan related meetings have you attended before today? So whether that's a meeting that we've hosted, you saw it on the agenda for a council meeting. Options are 0, none, 1, or at least 2.
So Nikki, are any responses coming into you? Because from what
Yes.
I'm seeing, it appears no one voting, but you're getting responses.
Yeah, I can see the responses.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure it was working because the input's important. Thank you.
For sure. I can actually say what I'm seeing just in case everybody's not seeing it. What we have so far for question number 1, how people heard about the meeting, social media, word of mouth, and via email are the responses so far. For how many master plan related meetings people have attended, 0, 1, and more than 1. Next question. Have you attended a parish meeting within the last 12 months? So this could be any meeting for Livingston Parish. So far, everyone has said yes, more than once. The other options are yes once and then no. Next question. How likely are you to attend a future public meeting in Livingston Parish? Very likely, somewhat likely, or not likely. So far, most have said very likely, and we have someone who said somewhat likely. These are also anonymous, so don't feel pressured. If you respond, we will not know who you are in case that's a barrier for anyone. Next question. What prevents you from attending community public meetings? Is it lack of time? You have a busy schedule? Not aware of the meetings in advance? Meeting times don't work for your schedule and they're inconvenient? Transportation challenges? The length of meetings, so how long they are? And then not feeling like your input matters. And then other, so if there's something else. So far we have not feeling like my input matters, the length of a meeting, and then busy schedule for a few folks. Next question. How would you like to be notified about parish meetings? So when there's a public meeting coming up, how would you like to know about it so you can plan to attend? Options are email, social media, parish website, local news outlets, community flyers. So this could be a flyer that you can find at a local library or the government building, things like that. And then other. Most folks are saying social media and via email. Next question. Which types of parish meetings would you be willing to attend? So what meetings are priority for you to attend. We also got a question that asks how many people are in this meeting. I can do that pretty quickly. Right now we have 13. We have had more. Looks like a few folks have dropped off. So for meetings types, parish council meetings is an option. Those take place twice a month. They're on Thursday evenings. Another option is planning and zoning commission meetings. Those are once a month, also on Thursdays in the evenings. Public workshops or charrettes. So these would be similar to a couple meetings that we've hosted where there is a heavy opportunity for engagement. They're pretty interactive. They might be specific to one project or one subject. And then informational sessions, I'm sorry, or town halls, none. And then the last option is other. If you have said other, again, feel free to respond in the chat to tell us what you have in mind if you would like. For this one, most folks say parish council meetings, also planning and zoning commission meetings, and then informational sessions or town halls. Next question. What days/times work best for you to attend parish meetings? Options are weekdays during the day. So this could be 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. during the week. Next option is weekday in the evening. So this would be after 5, after traditional business hours. Weekend during the day, so Saturday or Sunday during the day. And then the last option is weekend in the evening. And so far, everybody says weekday evenings.
I don't know. I think a Saturday evening public meeting might be pretty fun.
Bright and early. What format do you prefer to engage in meetings? Do you prefer in person? Whether that is at the government building, it could be at a library or school or elsewhere. Do you prefer virtual like this one? Or do you have a preference for hybrid, which would be you can attend either in person or virtually to get the information? Most say in person, and we have a couple folks who say hybrid. Next question. Where do you usually get information from about Livingston Parish? So are you perusing the parish website to get information? Are you looking at the social media accounts that the parish has? Are you signed up for a newsletter that might be coming via email, local news? Are you looking in the Livingston Parish news or following them on social, radio or TV? Parish council meetings, word of mouth or other. And for this one, parish council meetings, local news, parish social media, and parish website. Only a few more. Next question is, the parish makes many decisions that require public opinion throughout the year. How often would you like to be asked for your input on parish issues? Options are as often as possible, a few times per year, once a year, or only on issues that directly affect me. So would you like to be able to choose based on your priorities? Most folks are saying as often as possible. A few are saying a few times a year, and we have once a year as well. Next, besides meetings, how would you prefer to engage with the parish? Options are online surveys or polls, small group workshops, one-on-one conversations with staff or council, community events, fairs, or other. And again, if you are selecting other, we're happy to hear your particular thoughts, so you can share that in the chat or through the Q&A feature. For this one, looks like folks like the opportunity to connect with staff or council one-on-one, but all of them have been selected. So a little bit of everything from folks. Next question. Are you confident on how and where to access the draft Livingston Parish Master Plan? So this is what we just kind of talked about. This is what will be going before council soon for you to give input on. And we shared a link on how to find this on the website. So are you very confident that you know how to find this to review? Somewhat confident or not confident? Most folks are very confident. A couple are somewhat confident and one is not confident. So before the end of this call, we'll talk about that again to help make sure people know how to review. And then last question, are you confident on how to provide your input on the draft Livingston Parish Master Plan? So again, as Nathan mentioned earlier, there will be public comment periods and you are able to give your public comment before this is voted on. Options are very confident, somewhat confident, and not confident. And for this one, most folks are very confident and a couple are somewhat confident. That's the last question. I'm going to leave this up for just a couple more seconds while I look through the chat. We did have some conversation come in through the chat. So if you didn't get around to providing a response, feel free to share your feedback. Again, this is anonymous, so it won't say who you are if you would rather keep that private.
Yeah, so we did have an important comment that came in, Mickey, regarding how to submit comments on the future land use map. So I think that's really important because, again, that is a piece of the master plan that's not final yet. So at this point, I think the most appropriate way would be to email, I guess, Mickey, is it okay if we put your email on the contact? Great.
Yes.
So Mickey will respond to that comment and give you her email address so that if there's changes to the future land use map, those will be communicated to our team. And then, of course, as I mentioned, those 3 public meetings are also another good time to at least, maybe follow up on those requests if you're going to be making requests for those future land use maps to be changed. So I would take a look, at those opportunities if you're available.
And Nathan, this is a question for you, but I hope it provides some clarity. Relative to all proposed changes and comments that come in, we do keep a log of every one of those proposed changes and comments that we receive. So those are available. I'm sure they'll be presented to the council at some point of time already, right?
Yes, correct. So that was really important. I'm repeating just because it's a little hard to hear you, Max. But basically, if you submit a comment to us, regardless of whether or not our team makes that change immediately, it's a mistake or it's whatever, regardless of whether or not we're making that change or we're just providing it to the parish for their consideration, it will be added to a list of changes.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. Thank you all for sharing your feedback. Again, chat is wide open. You can share comments in the chat. You can send it directly to us, the team. We're on the panelist side, or you can share it where everybody can see it. So completely up to you. And then, of course, the Q&A box is open as well. There's also the option there to ask your question anonymously, or you can just, ask it and say it's coming from you. Couple more things in the chat. We are recording, yes. So we do plan to give this recording. We'll clean it up a little bit in case there's some quiet time on the front end or back end to polish it up just a little. We will give it to the parish for them to share on the website. So I'm not exactly sure what platform they'll be using, but it will be available for people to review if they want to watch it at a later time. And then, of course, the materials that we are discussing, the future land use map, the existing zoning map, those are available on the council website as well. And I'll share that link again before we wrap up.
Yes, and just to put it on the record, I saw come through in the chat that Councilman Chavers wanted his contact information available for anyone who had questions about the council process. So his email is rchavers@lpcgov.com. Phone number is 225-305-5341. So thanks for sharing, Councilman Chavers. If there's any other comments, we've got another 20 minutes left. So I think the team will stay on another. Oh, there's one more question that did not get answered. I just saw. Does this plan take into consideration the proposed Baton Rouge loop with the new bridge being discussed at the legislature, or is the loop no longer being considered? Well, I don't know what's going on in the Baton Rouge legislature. I wish I did. I think I would be a much richer man if that was the case. But if that were, this I think is an important question. It speaks to, the regional transportation issue here. So you all might be aware that for a long time now, there's been considerations for a second bridge over the river somewhere between, in the past, it's been Baton Rouge and Ascension, but there's been some various alignments that have been considered. I think that most of the regional impacts will be far enough removed from Livingston specifically. Certainly I think that there are some regional connectivity issues, but from a land use perspective, I don't find that this is going to be that a big enough driver that it needs to be, have its own section in the master plan. But certainly those types of regional projects have been considered. We've had those types of discussions. And so, but I think that's a good point, that as you sort of point out, if there were a major change to the alignment, or there were a connection that would be made maybe to the I-12 corridor in a way that was more specific, that could have a significant change in Livingston and might result in changes to the master plan, for example. So I apologize, I didn't see that question come in about 15 minutes ago. So thank you for sharing that. But other than that, I think we'll leave a couple more minutes for questions to trickle in. But thank you all so much for your time this evening. And we will be seeing you all at those hearings that we mentioned over the next 30, 60 days. And thank you all so much for your time. Stick around till 7:17-ish. See if anybody is just shy.
Or if anybody wants to come off mute, you can raise your hand. We'll take you off mute. And how to stay engaged. There's more.
Very important.
I've shared quite a few links in the chat, so that will direct you to finding out more about upcoming meetings that Nathan just mentioned. You can find that on the parish council website, the dates, as well as the times and location. I also shared a link for the Planning Commission's webpage where you can find out information about their meetings. And then, of course, the master plan draft, that link was reshared. We do have a project Facebook account. I will share that information. You can also just scan the QR code.
And Mickey, Max here,
Yes.
and I like to make this comment. Public participation is extremely important, and we know that public participation is extremely important. The purpose of the various meetings that have been held this evening is not so much to dictate what's going to be done, as it is to solicit public input that we listen to, and we try our best to consider all of that public input to develop the best plan that we can. No one is being ignored. And I just, I want to emphasize that when we have these meetings, it's so important to try to generate more public participation, because that's what the process is all about. That's my little speech. So I'm disappointed. Someone said we had 13, 15 people. That's about, a tenth of what I would hope would be on, participating. We try to advertise as best we can. We've been advertising it on various venues for quite some time. Hopefully, as we continue to go forward, these 3 more opportunities for public input, that will be sent.
Agreed. And I think, to that point, Max, this is the only online meeting that we've had. So I think it seems like in Livingston, in person might be the way to go. We'll look at our polls and see what it is, but we've had some very meaningful conversations, I think, at the in-person meetings too. I feel like, having the face-to-face can maybe elicit some more of those conversations. So we're trying it out, right? So I think this was great.
And Nathan, Councilmember Sandifer also said, please give out her, I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, yep. Let me read that out as well, because I know we had a couple councilmen Oh, well, she didn't drop her her contact information, but you know,
I
she
got
just
it.
wanted to say thank you. Oh, you did get it. Okay, great.
I'm gonna share it.
And I think we had at least one other councilman here, two more councilmen. So thank you all for showing up. I know this was there's a lot of things going on tonight, so we appreciate y'all making the time.
All right. Oh, thanks.
Beat you to it.
Thank you. All right. I think we can go ahead and close it out. And we will be in touch and look forward to continuing the conversation at the next council meetings and other opportunities to review the materials. Thank you all for joining us today and have a great evening.
Thank you.